Hello, everybody. Welcome to T.L.'s Roadhouse in the Man Cave. The Man Cave sessions again in the house of Mr. Ian Munsick.
Thank you for having me, brother. It's
Pleasure,
awesome
man.
here.
Been
It's
excited
awesome.
about sitting down and visiting with you.
Yes, sir.
So you just reminded me that we met briefly in passing at CMA Music Fest
Yep.
at the stadium. So
Yeah, man. You were I think on your way to the stage, and I was on my way off the stage.
yeah,
And,
that's a pretty massive thing to be a part of, isn't it?
man, it was. That was actually my first time playing in a stadium. And
Really. So is that the biggest crowd you've ever played in front of?
yes. Up until actually a few days ago, we played at the Ohio State Stadium with Morgan Wallen, and that was then the biggest. But man, it just feels like every weekend it's like, oh, there's another huge thing that we get to check off the list. It's pretty cool. But man, that was pretty nerve-wracking being in there, man. There's a lot of people in that stadium
There
for that
is.
weekend.
Do you find sometimes it's more difficult to perform in front of a huge crowd or in front of just a handful of people?
Man, I feel like there's a sweet spot, an arena to a club. That's kind of where like I feel is a sweet spot because you can still connect with the people that are right there. But then you get in a stadium and it's just like that. It's just an abyss.
Do you feel like you over exaggerate sometimes on the bigger stages?
Oh,
Do
yeah,
you,
absolutely.
Have you really kind of looked back and pondered on how you project out to the crowd? Because a lot of things that people taught me early on was play to the back of the room, where the back of the room
Exactly.
is. And I've heard tales. I've never done it because I've never headlined those really big arenas. I played a bunch of them, but it's never been my show, and that's a whole different level.
Yeah.
But I've heard of guys going out there and having their music played while they sit all the way at the back of the stadium and kind of got a feel for what was going on to kind of get their head wrapped around just how far they are away and how their mannerisms project everything.
Yeah.
Thought about any of that?
Man, honestly, not until now. Usually I just get thrown in it, and it's like, all right, well, here we go. We have 20 minutes.
Yeah, and it's
do
different
whatever
when
you
it's your
can.
production and everything, and you're just going
Yeah.
out there going. But it is a huge adjustment. I mean, just being able, when you get to that level, being able to project like that.
Oh yeah, man. And we actually we played the Bristol Motor Speedway with you and Morgan.
Morgan and Hardy.
Yes,
Hardy was there.
in September of last year. And that was the biggest stage that I had played up until then too. So
Did you
you've
see
been a part of two of the three that I've
That was one of the
that have been
highlights of my year. You know what happened to me? You know, it rained that day.
Yes.
I busted my ass. I stepped across. I was going out on the thrust, and I stepped across that monitor, and I went, boom.
Oh man.
Oh, yeah, that's awful.
How'd you play it off?
You just bounce right back up, keep going, man. There's nothing
And
you
the
can
crowd
do.
goes crazy for it.
There's nothing you could do. And it happens. The stage was so click. And cowboy boots, man,
Oh,
you
I
know,
know,
when you
I
got
know.
leather soles on.
I know.
I try to step real carefully, but I'm not as nimble as I used to be as I've gotten older. I used to get away with all that stuff, man. I can't do it anymore. And I hit hard, too.
Oh
But
man.
I think I was kind of spring loaded. I bounced right back up.
Well, that one was cold, man.
Yes.
That was like sleet, cold. We had just got done. We played Coyote Joe's in North Carolina, which is too much fun every single time.
Know it well.
Yes, and we played I think at like 3 p.m. at Bristol, so I was still feeling some kind of way from the night before, and then it was cold, and it was like, oh man, this is rough. But the crowd, man, it's like that's really when you know that country music has the most hardcore people out there that pay their money to sit in the freezing cold all day, and they're just loving every minute of it. And even like I'm on stage saying like, you guys have to be kind of miserable out there, but they're like, yeah, give me more of it.
Because they got antifreeze in.
Yeah, that's right.
and up there, some of it's homemade.
Yeah, no
and it's the
kidding, in
good
Bristol.
stuff.
Yeah,
it's
man.
the good stuff. They used to run race cars off of it.
Oh my gosh,
That's the real deal up there, man.
Yeah,
for
that's,
sure.
Yeah,
That is such an iconic place, you know. And wasn't that the original home of country music? They've got a museum and
think
everything
so,
up there
yeah.
too.
That's,
I've never been to the museum. Did you go to the museum the last time we were there, Junior?
Not been to the museum, but that was what was it? God, I'm drawing a blank. Kitty Wells? Is
The
that
Carter family.
I was thinking Carter, but
the Carter family, I think, was right.
It's the
Isn't it?
Carter
so.
family, yeah.
Mother Maybelle, I think she was part of that foundation. That's really all of country music kind of came from that area. I think.
Yeah, yeah, and didn't the music highway, doesn't that go from Bristol to Memphis? Isn't that like the music
I don't
highway
know.
or something like that?
I thought the music highway was between
country
Memphis
music
and
highway?
Nashville. Well, that's a good question.
But I think it keeps on
Does it?
going to Bristol. I think, but I could be wrong.
Well, let's just see if we have technology to find that out. It's pretty amazing. 50-mile drive, trail instances. That's very cool.
Let's go.
7 major music hubs along the way. Wow. Okay.
I don't even know how I knew that.
Just all that stuff gets burned into your brain, man.
That's right.
So what are some of those musical influences for you? How far back does yours go?
So my dad, he was huge into Merle Haggard, Don Williams, Ernest Tubb, Don Edwards, more of kind of like Western, the cowboy music. The Chris Ledoux obviously is a big influence. He's from Wyoming. I'm from Wyoming, so we have that. And that was kind of the music that I was raised on. But being a '90s baby, I got a lot of other music in there, from Blink-182 to Eminem and everything in between. But growing up on a ranch in Wyoming, country music was always it, man. It was always on the radio in the truck, and man, your songs, I mean, Time Marches On is to this day, could be the greatest country song of all time, man. I mean, it is incredible.
To me, it's the best lyric of anything I've recorded, and I've had some iconic records.
Yeah, man.
But that one, and Bobby Braddock wrote that by himself.
I saw that.
Yeah, it blows my mind.
On my way up here, I was like, I wonder who wrote that, and he wrote it.
And he wrote Texas Tornado.
Oh, really?
He wrote He Stopped Loving Her Today.
Oh.
I mean, the list is endless. I mean, his catalog, his body of work is just unbelievable what he's done.
He Stopped Loving Her. I can't believe that he wrote those two, because those are two of the three of the greatest ever.
Absolutely.
And he wrote each of those alone.
Yeah.
That is, I mean.
Isn't that crazy? He's really an absolute genius, musical genius, and it's amazing. But there's a lot of those guys in town, man.
Yeah.
The Craig Wisemans
absolutely.
and the Bob DePiros, and I got a chance to spend a lot of time with Hank Cochran years ago before he passed away. I mean, there's an endless list of these guys, and I call them the last true American poets in this country, because the guys that are truly at the top of the game of the craft of writing songs in country music, I don't think anybody in the world can touch them, because the imagery that they project with words is just absolutely brilliant. And I'm starting to see some of that stuff come back into country music too. I miss powerful lyrics.
Oh yeah.
I think I appreciate the party songs and the bro country and that stuff, the phase that we had. I think it all fits in there. There's a time and place for all of it. But when you go to iconic songs that are going to stand the test of time,
That's exactly.
I want something with substance and structure that's going to make me go, wow.
Yeah.
That you get a little bit more from it every time you hear it.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. I would say that, there's not a lot of writers in town now that write alone.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if there will ever be that again, because
I enjoy the co-writes though.
Me too.
I mean, there's something about collaborating, especially if it's a room of like-minded people. And I have been in some bad rooms with a couple of guys that just didn't have good chemistry, and it happens. But a lot of times, if you get guys and you get a flow, man, there's just something magical about having somebody to bounce things off of. Because the reality of songwriting, a lot of people don't realize that even if you write a song by yourself, you take an idea and you take the hardcore facts of that, but you're going to add some coloring in because you need to flavor it up a little bit. So there is nothing absolutely 100% true right down the line with a song. I mean, you're taking the general gist and the idea of whatever images are coming to your mind, and you're massaging them in a way that it comes to life.
Yeah.
Who are some of the really high caliber guys you've had a chance to write with so
far? Casey
Beathard
has been a huge one, man. I mean, just he's an animal.
He wrote Friends.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just such an iconic guy. I love that guy to death, man.
Yes.
He's written some monster freaking records over the years.
And just the most humble, will not take the credit for anything that he's written. It's all God that has written all of his, and that's just, I'm getting the chills just even talking about that. I mean,
and he came from a very his dad was a football coach, man. He came from a very prominent family and chose his own path, and I've always had so much respect for him. The time I've got to spend with him over the years, just because he went after his own thing and made his own way. I truly respect guys that do that. Yeah,
man, me too. I mean, he's one of the best of all time, and I'm so happy that he's getting inducted into the Hall, which is, he has absolutely earned that. I've learned a lot from him. Chris Dubois is another one of those guys that is just, those guys, I always try and come in the room with an idea and a title that I know that I like and that I would cut it.
Yeah.
If we do it well, But at the end of the day, I know that those guys have written for 20 plus years. They're one of the best in the game. And just to watch them just chew on it.
Oh, yeah.
And not speak, just chew on it. Like, they'll just do this. The Chris will usually have like a bat or something. He just like, and like he won't speak for like half an hour. And I'm just like,
weird to get used to.
Yeah. and being green, I was always like, this, and then he was like, and then just not talking. I'm like, man, this is going terribly. We're not going to get anything. And then he'll spit out a whole verse. It's like, oh my goodness, dude, this is amazing. So just learning from the pros, man, that's what it's all about.
Pretty amazing. Tell me about the journey from Wyoming that got you here.
Man, so my dad, he's played music his whole life, but he's a rancher, so that's just always been what he does. He loves the outdoors. He loves horses. He loves just being out in it. So Nashville was never really in the cards for him. But he raised my two older brothers and I to play music, and we played in a band up until I was about 18. And then I always knew that I wanted to write, I wanted to perform, and I wanted to produce my own music.
Yeah.
So I was always like, man, the place where you can do all three of those is as an artist, one, in Nashville, because those are the best guys in the world. So I went to college for 2 years there, and I started just playing in bands. And through the course of that, I realized that the bands that I was playing in was great. I love playing music. As long as I was playing music, I thought that I would be happy. But there was a part of me that was like, man, if you don't do your own thing, you're always going to look back and say, what if, So it was around that time where I met my wife, who was trying to be a manager at the time. And it worked out great where she started the company, and she really has an eye for branding.
Yeah.
All of the image is all her, and she also has a great ear. So we teamed up, and through that we fell in love, and we're married now, and she crushes it as a manager, as a mom, and as a wife. But for me, I just needed that person to be my champion in town, and she was that.
What was it like the first time you walked into a real big studio in town when you worked on a project? Tell me what that experience was like, and who were some of the players on that first session?
Man, it happened late. I did my first EP alone in my room. I've always been huge into recording my own music, and on the ranch in Wyoming, I didn't have access to anybody. So it's just like, all right, I'll play this instrument
Pro Tools and stuff
20 times until I get the decent thing, and then just edit it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I started it. And through that, I realized that people like my music because they can hear me on it.
Yeah.
You know, so I've always tried to carry that, but now I realize that there's people out there that I can channel their brains and their playing. It's like, all right, you guys just do that 2 times instead of me 200 times, you know? And so the first one that I did with a band in a studio was Ronnie's place. It was Jerry Rowe on drums, who's played on everything. Derek Wells on guitar, who's played on everything. Tommy Lucido on bass, who's an animal. Justin Shipper on steel, who's played on everything. And Ross Holmes, who is a prodigy fiddle player. He will be the next Janae, in my opinion. He's just amazing. So, man, just being able to be in a room and be able to express my artistry to that caliber of player was it was a treat, man. But I had been in town for 9 years
Really?
before that happened, which I think helped me communicate with those guys because I had learned the language. I learned who I was as an artist and what I wanted my records to be. So, man, and yeah, that's just how I like it. But from now on, man, I really like the starting my own stuff in my own studio and then hiring out guys like, all right, now you replay this part like you would just cleaner because it took me a long time to do this and it sounds like crap. Now you make it better, you know?
Yeah, and there's something about getting a really good group of players, you know, and sometimes players don't fit the direction that you're
Yeah,
going. They might be
absolutely.
great at a certain discipline or a certain direction, and finding the right group of guys or girls that really understands where you're coming from and then can take and enhance what you're trying to achieve. The chemistry in a room to me is so amazing when you get a group of truly professional guys because they're actually able to bounce things off of each other and they'll create little dynamics and little accents in certain places that you never would have thought of by
Yes.
yourself because they're just at another freaking level.
That's yeah.
And it just makes such a huge difference, man. Really, I've learned a lot of that over the years. And having a really good producer, even if you're doing a lot of it yourself, there's something about somebody that manages the chemistry in the
Yeah.
room, and that's a lot of what a producer does is making
is.
sure that everything's flowing. Not dealing with bad attitudes.
Yep.
You know, you get one bad seed in the studio and it can ruin the whole session.
Yeah.
And I've seen producers run guys off at a freaking heartbeat, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
I mean, you know, you just can't play around with it. There's too much money on the line.
Who produced your stuff back in the heart of
James Stroud was the very first producer that I worked with, and he taught me so much, man. I mean, I came to town with all of these influences, and I could, you know, do all the phrasing like, you know, George Strait or you know, Keith Whitley or Merle Haggard or, you know, just Ricky Van Shelton or whatever. I had a huge repertoire and I was really good at emulating all of them. So I had all these vocal tricks. I just didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
And James really got me in a room and really honed things down and made me focus on the things that made me unique and made me special and really taught me how to really focus on a lot of those special, unique characteristics of my voice and kind of push some other things out of the way. But as you get in where you're going in and cutting songs that aren't somebody else's, you learn to do that pretty quick to push a lot of those influences out of the way. 'Cause, you know, we all can emulate a lot of people
Yeah.
that we are influenced by, but being able to find your own voice is very, very, very important.
Yeah. Well, that's weird because you have an incredibly unique voice.
But if you really listen to it, it's a lot of John Anderson, it's a lot of Merle Haggard, it's a lot of George Strait, it's a lot of Keith Whitley. So there's some nuances in there that are directly taken from a lot of those guys that I mean, John, you can hear a lot of John in my voice at times, and Keith too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, you know, but you know, and I think back a lot, if you really go back, think about Hank Williams Sr. You know, we all have influences to draw from and sit in our bedroom, you know, at 12, 13, 14 years old and sing, you know, for hours and hours trying to get figure out these tricks and how you get your voice to do this and this and this. How did Hank Sr.
I
get to
know.
that place? He didn't have those people to draw those inspirations or influences or to learn from.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it was all new back then. So you think about that, how brilliant they had to be back in the day.
Yeah, that's wow.
Yeah.
That's very true. And even with Elvis, like there's only one Elvis. That's his voice.
That's
you
his
know?
voice, but he had a lot of black music and
Absolutely.
R&B stuff to draw from, and that's really where a lot of his came from. And if you think about all the British bands, I mean, they
Yep.
drew from black soul singers
Yeah.
and all that. A lot of that came from Muddy Waters
Yep.
and Robert Johnson. I mean, that's where a lot of that stuff came from. Even instrumentalists, a lot of guitar players,
Oh, yeah.
they all drew from that stuff. So, I mean, but going back before people were making records, before it was an industry, before people had things to be influenced by, you were just flying by the seat of your pants if you really think about it. So it was just whatever you were was coming out.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool when you ponder on it.
Man, I wonder if, that's probably why though Hank is who he is.
Absolutely.
Because he didn't have those.
Absolutely. And that's probably, everybody gave Hank Jr. so much stuff, that he was riding on his daddy's name, but nobody sounded like Hank Jr.
Oh, no.
But if you go back to some of the old footage and stuff, there was a time he could sing just like his daddy, but he had to stop.
Yeah, wow.
He had to stop, man. He had to find his own voice. It's so freaking important to do that.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, that's, I go back and listen to my old stuff. My first record that gave me the confidence to do this.
Yeah.
I was 19 years old in a basement in Wyoming, just trying to do it all. And like, I go back to it, it's like, oh, I have some Blink-182 going on in my voice there. Like, what's going on there? Like, and now I don't have that at all.
Yeah.
But it's weird how, and just my age too, from 20 to 30, how old I am now, there's just a lot of life goes in between that time. Like I'm a dad now, I'm a husband now. Back then, it was just me, just trying to figure it all out. But I think that, I think Chris Stapleton has a quote that's like, you can hear the life that you've lived in your voice. Again, I feel like that's kind of what's happened good to me over the last few years. It's like, man, like now I kind of am who I will be. And I
it
feel
continues to grow.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Without a doubt.
Yes. And, I wrote a tune with Vince Gill on my last album, and I was writing in his studio, and I asked him, do you think that you're a better vocalist now or when you were 30 years old? And he said, now, without a doubt.
Yeah.
It's like, it's pretty impressive how I feel like music is one of the rare skills that you really just keep on growing and growing and growing and growing. There's no like peak like there is to athletics or, stuff like that. It's just like, man, you can really just go all the way.
Well, think about George Strait's journey. He was one of my early influences, and we'll go back to, Unwound, that first album that he had out. That's one of my favorite things that he ever did. And really and truly, man, he was basically a regional act back then. I mean, he was big in the little part of Arkansas that I grew up in, because we grew up in a little rodeo town and all that stuff. But as there's stuff that he did later on Pure Country that he would have never even considered doing in the early part of his career. It was part of the journey of growth. And as you grow as an artist, once you've done that, you've done it. I don't want to do it with sticks and stones. I've done that. You're always looking to broaden yourself artistically, to do something that pushes you or challenges you a little bit more. And I think that's part of the whole journey. And also, you've got all these influences and things that infiltrate your songwriting, that infiltrate your psyche and who you are as a human being and what you believe. Things going on in society that you agree or disagree with. All those things affect the person that you become and what you write and what you think and how you feel on a day-to-day basis. It all matters.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Where was time marches on at in your career?
Fourth album. So it was evolution, and at that particular time, I had made a change. I'd cut 3 albums with James Stroud, and I went to Stroud. James was doing Tim McGraw, he was doing Clint Black, he was doing Clay Walker, he was doing John Anderson, and I went and sat down with James. I said, James, I got to leave you, man. He said, why? I said, I love you. You taught me so much. I said, but you're using the same guitar players and the same drummers and the same steel players, et cetera, on these same records. And I'm tired of hearing the same licks on everybody else's records that I'm hearing on mine, and I got to make a change. And I still love him, and he and I are still dear friends, and I have so much respect for him. He taught me so much. But moving to Don Cook, who had been doing Brooks and Dunn, that was a whole different sound for me. And making that change also came with a new pipeline to different songwriters and a different group of people that added things to that record that I hadn't had access to before. So change can sometimes be very good if you do it at the right time.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna. I feel like change will always yield change. I mean, that's.
Oh yeah, and it's healthy. And sometimes you need change to get out of a rut. You need change because you're too happy.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to get yourself in a different mindset, because sometimes a happy country song is not a good country song. I don't particularly gravitate to them. I want Crying in Your Beer. I want heartbreak songs. Those are the things, even as a child, when I would hear those songs on the radio, even at 8, 9 years old, before I even knew what love was, emotional songs would make me emotional. I just felt the power of them, and I would cry at even a young age before I'd ever even thought about experiencing anything like that. That was the power that the music had on me.
Yeah. Wow, man. That's.
So when you go back home, what do you do now? You big hunter, fisherman? What do you do when you go home?
Man, I love to.
It's a beautiful place out there.
It is, man. It is, man. I miss it every day. There's no place like Wyoming, man. That's what I always say. But love to fly, fish on the rivers out there. I love to just work on the ranch. I love to stack hay bales for a couple days. And then I'm raised like, well, this is why I moved to Nashville, to escape this manual labor.
Yeah, buddy.
But man, I think it's really, especially for people like us that our music is about working hard, loving hard, rugged lifestyle.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times we're either out on a tour bus or at home trying to sleep to rest to go back out on the tour bus. But I think that it's really important for me to go back to Wyoming to regain those experiences and to reappreciate where I come from and who I make my music for.
And to reground at times. It's really easy to get disconnected from where you come from.
Yes.
And it's
absolutely.
It really is, man.
Especially in Nashville, man, because everybody is from everywhere. So there's not a lot of people from where I'm from here that I can like have a beer with and just remind myself where I came from.
Yeah.
I literally have to go all the way back to Wyoming to remind myself where I came from.
Because it's a different mindset out there. I mean, just the lifestyle and everything is completely different. The pace of life is different.
Yep.
Everything is like sitting right here on top of you in Nashville. You have access to anything and everything you possibly want, from music gear to the grocery stores and everything.
Exactly.
It's not that way out there. It's very spread out. You can't just run to the store and pick up something for supper.
No.
It's not that way.
No, man. But gosh, that's just, that's the way that's always what makes me feel at home, man, is just being out there, depending on your neighbors, you know what I mean? And having the respect for your neighbors. Whereas out here, like I kind of want to just keep to my, like,
Oh, I know.
I don't want to reveal too much to my neighbors about who I am, or just because it's a crazy world that we live in.
Oh, yeah.
But in Wyoming, it's like, oh man, yeah, man, here's the key to my house. Help us brand in a couple months. Like, you guys can come over whenever, ride your horses in the pasture whenever you want. That is just a quality way to live your life.
And there's not many places left where you can do that.
Exactly. And it's kind of sad, man. And it's kind of scary too.
It really is. And just got to embrace it as long as you can, man, because the world is changing so fast around us, and it's very frustrating from somebody that grew up in a simple lifestyle and with good parents and a Christian background to see how much our country is just
I know, man.
where it's gone. It's very frustrating to me.
Where in Arkansas were you raised?
Southwest corner of the state.
Okay, so by like Oklahoma?
Oklahoma, Texas, right, bordered Red River in Texas to the south and Oklahoma to the west. 7 minutes from the Oklahoma line. Grew up in the wettest dry county in the state of Arkansas. A lot of gravel roads, brother. Yeah, we actually got the opening day of deer season out for school. I mean, back then, everybody had a pocket knife in their pocket when they went to school. We had weapons in our cars, and we got deer day off because nobody was coming to school anyway. We got a senior skip day to go to the lake. I mean, all those things were great back then. You don't get to do any of that stuff anymore.
No. Deer day. That's awesome.
Deer day, man. Nobody came to school on deer day. And back where I grew up, we ran dogs. That's a whole different deal, running dogs on deer. I don't care much for it. I'd rather sit in a quiet stand. There's something about being out in nature and watching the world wake up in the morning that's very therapeutic for me, man. Feeling the animals come to life. You can't appreciate it if you've never done it, but going out before the sun comes up and sitting there.
Yep.
But I've been able to elk hunt out in your part of the world, man, and going out and glass things in the morning and watch which way they go up the mountains and then packing up for hours.
Oh, dude, yeah.
And it's a very physical lifestyle.
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's not a lot of people that aren't healthy out there. I mean, my parents, they're 70 years old. They are fit. More fit than I am.
Well, they walk a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, they're working all the time.
Constantly doing stuff. Constantly. It's like, dude, how do you guys have the energy? But now I know where I get that because like I always have to be doing like I'm either cleaning or I'm going down to the studio. Like I have to be doing it.
That's difficult for guys like you being trapped on a bus.
I know.
Have you gotten kind of
terrible.
claustrophobic? It's kind of like being in prison. I mean, I struggled with it for years when I first got on the road because I'd absolutely go stir crazy, and I would get to shows. I mean, and just. Can I borrow somebody's car just to drive around?
Yeah.
I mean, I really would. It drove me crazy for a while. You accept it over a period of time.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do when you get caged up like that?
Man, I bring out my computer and my recording stuff, and I just edit because I know it's like, all right, I'm being productive. At least, like if I can't, and I could still go out and run and stuff, but I've never been a big runner, man. I'd rather like lift some weights or do. But as long as I can be productive, I'm at ease a little bit more. But man, if a day goes by and I'm not, I get kind of in a dark place, man, because I feel like I don't have that lightning that I'm like sparking what I'm supposed to be doing. Even if I know that I'm going to play that night, that's only for an hour and a half out of the day or for 2 hours. Like I still got another 12 hours to fill. Like, what am I going to do with that 12 hours?
Is it more difficult on you when you got those 3 o'clock, 3:30 shows in the afternoon where you get up and you do your thing and then it's like, what do I do now?
I actually like those because it's like, that's kind of like in the prime of the day. Like, I'm usually pretty tired after I get off stage, so like you get off stage at say 5 o'clock and it's like, all right, like I'm going to eat and then I'm going to chill and I'll be good. But man, like if you play at 10 o'clock, it's like, damn, I got 10 hours to just
or even 11
around, man.
Some clubs, man, are 11:30, and they're still tough, man.
That's the Coyote Joe's, man. That's the like you go on stage at 11 o'clock. It's like shit. I should have been asleep 2 hours ago, and I'm just getting on stage.
Well, tell Alan Presley I said hello the next time you're there. I know those boys well.
Oh man,
I had a lot of epic nights at Coyote Joe's. Yes, sir.
My wife is actually from there, and she has had some epic nights there too, long before she knew me. But yeah, man, that's what. What's one of your favorite spots that you've ever played?
Oh man, there's so many good ones. It all runs together after a while. I mean, I love Billy Bob's. Billy Bob's is one of the few clubs that I still play.
Yeah.
But I love doing the theaters. Man, What people don't really realize is that you show up at the back of a venue. My typical day is I usually see a golf course or a gym.
Nice.
And then, a lot of times I couldn't even tell you what the front of the building looked
Yeah.
like. I walk in, there's a stage, there's lights, there's a bunch of seats. You play, you either know you had a great show and the crowd loved you or you didn't. So it's really hard to put any of that in perspective, man. It really is. I mean, they all run together after 30-something years on the road. I'll always try to be in the moment, man. That's pretty much it. And there's been some great nights. There's just some beautiful places out there. The last couple of weekends, though, have been so dang hot, I'd just as soon forget them.
Yeah,
when it's 10 o'clock at night and it's 100 degrees when you go on stage, it's pretty miserable.
Kills me.
It kills me. I struggle.
Gosh, we played in Mississippi last weekend, and golly,
You scrape the humidity off your arm, man.
It's 100 degrees at
yeah.
10 o'clock at night.
Absolutely.
It's like, that does not happen where I'm from, man. When it goes down, it gets cold. When it comes up, it gets hot. But when it goes down, it stays hot out here, man.
So we were just out in Idaho a few weeks ago, and my guitar player turned me on to a guy named Travis Harper. That's a really good tattoo artist. And
nice.
This is my country music Mount Rushmore.
I was going to say
So
that.
we've got to touch it up. It's still it'll up a little bit, but this is George Strait, George Jones, Keith Whitley, and Merle Haggard. Those are my guys.
That is
so. Who would be your
solid Mount Rushmore?
Who would be your Mount Rushmore if you put that on your arm?
I thought about this a lot, man, and I'm glad that George Jones is on yours, because I feel like a lot of guys my age, they go to George Strait immediately and and then they kind of blow over George Jones. But George Jones, man, in my opinion, is the GOAT. Like, he is the greatest of all time. The amount of time that he spent doing it, I mean, man, he was in the 50s all the way through the 2000s, really. I mean,
he was the first tour when my career took off. I spent a couple of years on the road with Jones and got to know him really well.
Badass.
I was very close with him and had some just amazing memories with him just as a human being. More so, I grew up straight and haggard.
Yeah.
But I spent more time with Jones than I did anybody. It was pretty special memories for me.
Man,
he was definitely a character, and the man that I knew. All those stories that you hear about Jones. We've all seen the movies and heard the stories. The man that I knew was a sweet, cool old cat. He had kind of laid the bottle down and got his life together by that time.
Yeah.
But I respected him so much because at that point in time, in the early '90s when my career took off, we had, all the guys like Waylon and Willie and Haggard and everything, and had been prominent on the radio for years. And all of a sudden, this whole new crop of people came in. Radio started switching over to what they were calling young country format in the early '90s. And so all these old cats were being pushed aside, and they blamed us. And a lot of times, they didn't want anything to do with us. And George Jones was really the one. Strait was never part of that. Strait's been iconic. It's been amazing. He's been able to parlay stuff past multiple generations and changes in the music business and all that. But Jones was an old cat already, and I watched Jones embrace all of us young kids. And he went and cut, I don't need no rocking chair, and had who's going to fill their shoes and all these things. And I always respected what he did as a human being because he understood what his role was and how he fit into the picture and what was coming up behind him. And he chose to be respectful and appreciative of the young artist and make friends with all of us. And I tried to do the same thing. And a lot of that came from what Jones taught me. He was really a cool cat.
That's really cool, man. I feel, and I'm sure it was like that too when you were coming up. But, there's always the competitiveness.
Oh, absolutely.
And the jealousy that goes along, But
you didn't want to follow him. I'll tell you that. I don't care how old he was. You didn't want to follow George Jones. He'd bring the house down every night. I don't care if he's 80 years old. He did.
Oh, my gosh.
Pretty amazing. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's about as good as it gets because you have each generation. You got boom, 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 boom. And so there's nothing, I mean, that's probably right. But in terms of my personal heroes, George Jones, George Strait, Marty Robbins. I love Marty Robbins.
Very cool.
Huge Marty Robbins guy. And Marty Stewart, man. I love Marty Stewart. I think he's probably the most underrated rated country artist maybe of all time.
I love Marty, man, and just a sweet, genuine guy.
Yes, man. I mean, as humble as they come, and I don't know if there's ever been an artist more talented than him. I mean, he can, golly, dude.
Anything with strings on it.
Sings his ass off, writes his ass off, plays his ass off. Like,
Well, and he was on the road. He was on the road when he was 14 years
Yeah,
old. I mean, he's been out there for a long time, and is one of the most knowledgeable minds as far as country music history,
Yep.
legacy, legends. I mean, stories. I mean, there's nobody that knows more about this industry than
Yeah.
Marty Stewart. I mean, he
Yeah.
really knows a lot.
yeah.
Yeah, he's fascinating. Yeah.
So those are my four, man. But I think that, I mean, you got it all the way from the start to the end, man.
So where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, man? What's your 5-year plan?
Man, my 5-year plan, honestly, man, I feel like right now we have a great grassroots with core that has allowed me to have success outside of Nashville,
Okay.
which I'm grateful because 95% of the touring that you do is outside of Nashville, you know?
Yeah.
But I feel like the next 5 years, to my goal is to win over east of the Mississippi River, because we have west already down the pretty good, which is, I ride or die for the west, man. That's just who I am. But man, east of the river, the majority of country music audience is out here just because there's more people out here.
Yeah.
So.
That trek going out to the upper Northwest to play shows, it's pretty scattered. It's a long haul to go out there. You got Shine Frontier Days. There's just a few places scattered through, but it's a tough trek. It's tough on you bus drivers.
A lot of mileage.
Lots
in
of
between stops.
mileage.
Yeah.
It really is. It's
Yeah.
tough to go out there.
Yeah, but man, they appreciate it though out there, man. I mean, where I'm from, the only thing that we had in a year was Frontier Days, and that's it, man. Like, there's no other.
Have you had a chance to play it yet? I mean,
Yes, yep.
on the main stage.
Yes. We
Very cool.
played last year with Parker McCullum, which was amazing, man. It was a dream come true, and Wyoming was there riding hard, which was awesome,
That's
man.
good,
It was cool. But man, yeah, I mean, there's just my first concert that I went to was Guy Clark
Wow.
when I was 13 years old in Colorado. So I had to go 8 hours away to go to my first real concert, and my first real one was Guy Clark. A lot of people have never even heard of Guy Clark. So it's like there's just not a lot out there, man.
Yeah, a lot more people are going out there these days, and you can make that trek and go up into Canada, but but I do love it out there, man. I think that whole part of the country, man, going across
is.
big sky country in a bus is just sitting there watching that countryside go by is absolutely amazing. What's your favorite wild game to eat?
Ooh.
Elk, venison,
Elk is great, man.
antelope.
Buffalo,
I've never had buffalo.
Really
Maybe
good.
I think I've had buffalo burgers.
it's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, in my opinion, it's the closest thing to beef, and
Is it?
I love beef. It's hard to beat.
Less marbling? Is it more just
Yes.
natural red meat?
Yeah, man. It's a lot leaner, just
Would you rather hunt or fish?
fish.
Yeah.
I like to bird hunt, but man, I went out there with my dad and we killed an elk, and man, my heart kind of broke a little bit after killing the elk. Just because obviously, like, I'll eat the meat, but I'd rather eat beef. So just having that big animal, man, it's like, dude, like,
Something else, though, man.
yeah.
So
I mean,
y'all
it's
have,
awesome.
Y'all have grouse and
Yep.
pheasant out there too, don't you? Now I've hunted pheasant in the Black Hills in South Dakota.
A lot of fun.
But I love pheasant meat.
Yes.
I actually love
Yeah.
wild game
Yes.
like that.
Yes. Grouse.
I don't think I've ever eaten a grouse. They're real similar, aren't they?
Yeah. But man, they are hard to spot. I mean,
Really?
yes. I mean,
Male and females are really difficult to discern.
yes, they blend in very well to their environment. I remember my brother and I, we went hunting, and we hiked probably 5 miles and saw one.
Wow.
And it's like, then I asked him, I was like, hey man, is this like how it usually is? Or are we just not having any luck? He's like, this is usually how it goes. Like, usually like every mile you might hit one. We had a bad day and we're hiking a lot longer than that, but it's like, man, that's...
What's the turkey species out there?
Man, I don't know the exact name of it, but we have plenty of turkeys out there. Yeah.
I was so excited. I was out working in my little garage the other day, and I looked out across the pasture to the west there, and we've got a small group of turkeys that have just come in. I've had some jakes and a couple of full growns, a couple of big gobblers, and I looked out there and there was about 20 babies that were about this big. I'm like, that's freaking awesome. I'm starting to populate. Nobody's taken any of them out of here in the last 2 or 3 years, so it was really exciting for me to see that turkey population.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. That's just another reason to be out in the country, man. It's just, you get to just see,
oh my gosh,
animals and wildlife on your land. That's about as cool as it gets, dude.
Yeah, and realizing, I've got a couple of sanctuary spots that I don't really trek into.
Yeah.
And I've got mamas with babies. My wife's like, we need to clear all this stuff. I'm like, no. If you clear all the underbrush out, then they move somewhere else. And I like waking up in the morning. I'll go stand at the front and drink a cup of coffee and watch the deer come out and work their way across to the pond in the front.
Yeah, man.
It's just, there's something very tranquil about being able to experience that and see I don't really harvest anything from here, man. I go down to West Texas.
Yeah.
I like to see everything right here. It's very enjoyable. It soothes my soul. Being able to be this close to town and be able to wake up in the morning and have this peace of mind like this.
Yeah, that's
pretty freaking awesome.
You have the best of both worlds.
Absolutely.
Out here,
it's very rare. Have you had a chance to do any salt fishing yet?
Yeah, we go down to Belize. We used to go down every year. We haven't been down in a couple years now, but man, we went out there and we caught a bunch of fish, and they are delicious there. They fillet them right there on the beach and grill them. It's like, oh man, those are the best fish tacos ever. But we caught some sharks out there, and that was not as much fun.
They're fun to fight, but they'll chase all your fish off.
Yeah. And then you get them in the boat, and they just beat them with a club, and it's like, sorry, man.
Yeah,
but
it's something to see. I love just put me in a boat. I just love being in a boat.
Yeah, man.
I always have.
Me too.
Junior and I, he likes to fish down on the rivers. You have a chance to fish these little rivers around?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah.
The kayaking around here, the fishing kayak stuff is awesome.
That's what we do, man. The Harpeth, we live out there, man. I'll just go out there with my spinning rod, to not even a fly rod, and to still catch 3 or 4 smallies just like right out of the kayak. That's about as fun as it gets, man.
Absolutely.
It's a blast.
And the Caney Fork, man, there's a lot of trout on it. I don't think you can keep the fish on the Caney Fork, can you?
I've never done that.
I know, I see a lot of people fishing, but I think it's all catch and release. I think it's very highly regulated. The Duck is one of my favorite rivers around here. It's like the largest wildlife ecosystem in the United States. It has more the largest number of greenlet mussels and different type of mussels, birds, species of fish. It's an amazing river. It's not very far from here either.
I need to go hit that
Duck
up.
River's pretty awesome. And Buffalo, that's the Buffalo.
Not Arkansas's Buffalo, Perry County.
The Buffalo.
Now.
Yeah.
But smallies and largemouth in there, and then catfish, because I live around the Tennessee River, so we do the catfish in there, and then the smallmouth and largemouth in both rivers. So
nice, man. Yeah. We used to live on Old Hickory Lake, and man, I used to go out there all the time. We lived in a little cove. I just to bring the kayak out, and there was some big largemouth.
And there's some big striper on that.
Yes, there are. There are. Yeah.
Have you ever get hit by a striper? One about that big, it'll feel like it's breaking your freaking wrist. They hit so hard, man.
And in a kayak, man, they'll drag you around.
Yeah, totally. My buddy caught one. I was out there, but we were on a pontoon, and man, he was going in on it, and then he brought it in. I was like, what is that? I did not know that we had those here. So I Googled it, and it was a striper.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I did not know that we had those.
They are strong, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hit freaking hard.
Yeah, man.
You ever been frog gigging?
Gigging, What does that mean exactly?
That means
gigging?
there's several ways of gigging. Now, a lot of times the only gigs that I've ever been able to find around here, and I hadn't frog gigged in a long time, but I used to do it all the time because I got several ponds around here. But that you'll go out at night with a headlamp or something, and it's like a prong thing where you just gig them and you'll like drag them back. Now back home, we had gigs that were spring loaded, so you cock them back. So when you caught them, it clamped down on them.
Oh.
I've actually gone out with 22 shorts and a net and pop them in the head and put them in the 5-gallon bucket. Those are real good too. When my wife first moved in with me, she came from Beaumont. She opened up my freezer one day. There was salmon from Alaska that I'd caught. There was a whole bunch of squirrels from around here. There was a whole bunch of rabbits. There's all kinds of crap in there. She's like, "What in the world am I getting into?" Yeah, you got to do that, man.
Squirrels. That's next level. Putting squirrel meat in your freezer, that is some redneck
Well,
shit.
you never know when you're gonna need it.
My brothers and I, I'm the youngest, so a lot of the times it was my 2 older brothers and then me just to trying to keep up. Wait up, you guys. But we had a pond, and there was a period of time where we used to catch frogs, but only with our hands. We didn't, quote unquote, gig them. But we'd catch them, kill them, rip the legs off, and eat the legs over the fire.
Have you had crawfish yet?
No.
You got to do the crawfish.
Well,
see,
yes,
Louisiana.
Crawfish broil.
No. You got to go to a crawfish boil.
Oh, boil. That's what
Yeah. And all the Cajun spices.
They throw the potatoes and the corn.
Oh, yeah. That's the stuff. Right now, we're way past it. Usually about June, they start getting real hard. They're big, but they're too hard to open. You want to catch them about the end of January. It's when they start getting real good. So if you get a chance to go play Louisiana during the spring, you want to make sure that somebody does some crawfish for you.
Okay, cool.
Because it will change your life.
Man.
They're like little bitty lobsters, what they say. But you got to learn how to suck the heads.
Ooh.
And it's not like you're getting all the gunk. You just want to crack them because all the water and the spices will get up in the cavity. So you really just want to crack them and get the water out. You don't want to suck it really hard. You just want to be kind of delicate with it.
Do they taste like lobster?
No, not with all those spices. You're right.
What do they taste like?
They taste like
its own thing. Yeah,
they're kind of their own thing. They're really. I've gotten really fast at it over the years. I can sit down and eat till I get tired. I really don't get full, but I love them so much. But I'll eat any kind of seafood, man.
Yeah.
Oysters. I don't care. I'll eat sushi. I eat everything.
Man,
You eat sushi?
No.
See, I'm trying.
I'm from Wyoming, man. We are very landlocked, very much landlocked.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take you out and eat sushi. I'm gonna have to teach you how to eat sushi.
I like crab and lobster. Those two are my favorite. I love those. But man, unless it's like fresh caught trout or something, I kind of tend to stay away from the seafood just because there's some bad experiences out there in
We're
Wyoming.
gonna have to help them get there, aren't we? So what are you working on right now, music wise? What's you got a new project coming? I know you're out touring. What you got?
Yeah, man. I released my sophomore album, White Buffalo.
Saw that up
back in April, and I'm coming out with a deluxe album in January. So I'm working on that right now. Obviously, we're in the heart of touring, so just a lot of that, and trying to make time to make the other few tunes that we're cutting on the deluxe happen. And man, we're going to radio with a tune called Long Live Cowgirls in October that I'm really excited about.
Now, wasn't that a duet with somebody?
Yes, with Cody Johnson.
Cody Johnson.
Yep.
Yeah, so I've heard that one around, but you've got a solo version of that coming out later this year, right?
Yes, I do. In about a month. Yep.
Very good.
Yeah, man.
Well, what all stuff do you do social media wise? You were active on TikTok? What all? I mean,
yeah, man. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. TikTok, she runs my TikTok, so I try and.
So when we get him eating sushi for the first time, you have to video it. The first time he puts a raw oyster in his mouth, we have to get it on video. It's very important to me.
I think that you might be the only person that could get me to eat an oyster, man. That is.
I'm good at getting people to do lots of things.
I just can't imagine the first guy that opened up an oyster said
he had to be
that
really
looks
hungry.
appetizing.
He had to be really hungry.
Oh,
that's all I can tell you.
Man.
Yeah, he was trapped on a deserted island somewhere, and he was starving to death.
Oh.
I have a question. I know. I have two questions, and they're nowhere near each other. Okay, so you said you're from Wyoming, and it's hard like to find like in Nashville to be like, hey, here's the key to my house kind of stuff. But I feel like you've found a group of guys like that are well, they're in Texas, but like Cody Johnson being one of them. Like I feel like, do y'all powwow a little bit more than like some of you and like the other guys around town?
Yes, yeah. I would say that Texas is like a cousin to Wyoming. There's very very alike, whereas our country equals cowboy, whereas here the country equals redneck.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
that's fair.
Whereas in Wyoming, we don't really have rednecks in Wyoming. You know, like there are a few, but we just call them
idiots.
The country folk.
They're the people you think
No,
Sorry.
no.
What is a redneck?
Oh, to me, a redneck is somebody that lives southeast. Just growing up in Wyoming, yes. My wife is a redneck. She wears the camo even when she's not hunting. She was born and raised in
It's a fashion statement.
yeah. Has the accent. Yeah. But we just didn't have people from this part of the region in Wyoming. You know, they're usually from the Midwest and their car broke down in Wyoming, and that's kind of where they stayed.
That's a Kenny Chesney song. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's right. That's right. Yeah, when the car broke down.
All right. You got one more?
Okay, the hair.
Oh yeah,
It's long.
yeah, it is. Here, let me get it going for
Yeah.
you
it
guys
is,
for a
like,
second.
Obviously, everybody wants to know what hair products you use, but second of all, like, tell us about it.
Yeah. So,
What hair products you use?
I mean, everybody wants to know.
well, let me say that, in my opinion, guys with long hair, girls are 9 times out of 10 they're jealous of them because they have quote unquote good hair, and I think it's because guys don't usually bleach their hair or dye their hair. Bleach kills things. Dye is another word for death. So, like, I like to keep it very just natural. But I will say that one secret is argan oil. It is a golden oil from somewhere in Morocco,
Really?
an exotic land. Yeah. And you just use just a little bit of it. You put it on the tips and you brush your hair. But, man, I will say having long hair is a pain in the ass as a guy. It's terrible.
My dad uses Prel. He doesn't. He used to have long hair, but I don't even know if you can still find it. I know you can still find it. It's like in CVS, but it's like a.
Isn't that hand sanitizer?
No, that is Purell, but it's Prel.
I was going to say, that sounds familiar.
Purell?
My dad's the only person keeping them in business, but his hair is luscious. And
Really?
He's 70. Oh my gosh! I mean, it's not
His
long.
hair is luscious.
Like it's luscious for sure.
See what I have to put up with, man?
Oh, I know. But I do. Oh, gosh.
It's just luscious.
But I will say, man, having a female manager, for me, dude, I mean, I can't imagine having a guy as my manager. Like, I'm a guy. I know what guys want for the most part, and it's usually nothing.
We're very
Guys are-
simple creatures,
yeah,
man.
pretty easy.
Yeah, we're
pretty
easy. Yeah.
But my wife knows what girls want, and I don't really know what girls want, but she does.
It gets easier as you get older. You just learn to conform.
Yeah, that's
I've been married 25
I've
years,
learned
brother.
that.
It gets easier.
Yeah, I've learned that over the 2.5 years that we've been married. So I'm a fast learner.
So ACM was, what was the first award show you went to? That looks like this year's ACM award that's up on the screen.
Yeah, that was actually I think last year, so 2022. When the ACMs are in March, right?
Yeah. They were this year.
Yes. So that was
bounce around.
2 years ago. The first one that I went to ever was in I think it was 2019, so right before COVID, the CMAs, because those usually happen in November.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was the first one that I went to watch. But the first like red carpet, I think was it that one? Yeah, the ACMs 2022 ACM.
Tell me about that jacket.
That's Manuel, dude. You know it.
I know it's a Manuel, man. I've known Manuel a long time.
I'm sure you have. He's a bad dude, man. He is the man. He is just as honest as they come. Does not care who you are.
He loves tequila.
Yeah, he does. Yes, he does. Man, I mean, dude, you talk about a guy that can name drop.
He knows everybody.
Everybody. Like he made the Sergeant Pepper suits. Like, dude, that is as iconic as it gets.
Oh, without a doubt.
But man, just to be able to rock that and throw in a little bit of the
don't do like
Western
I did.
heritage.
I made the mistake of giving things away to auction items and different things over the years. A lot of them, as I couldn't wear them anymore, I've kind of removed them. And I wish I'd hung on to all those things, the iconic stuff, because as your career progresses, you're going to look back in 10, 15 years and wish, if you get rid of it, you'll wish you still had it. Don't ever let anybody talk you out of those
Everybody
things.
still asks Tracy, like, do you still have it? Do you still have that? I'll look on eBay. I'm like, we gotta find these shirts.
Yeah,
right.
well, it's not just shirts, but I had a bunch of Manuel jackets early on too, and grew out of them. I mean, I can't wear any of that stuff anymore. And just it would be a big auction or something. I said, yeah, I don't need this anymore. And I regret so much by letting a lot of those things go. Just don't let anybody talk you out of that stuff. You'll be glad when you look back at your body of work over the 15, 20 years or so that you held on to those things, because they'll bring back so many great memories for you.
Well, that's great because. She will never let me.
If she's running things, it's kind of like my wife with our daughters when they were doing dance competitions. She still has every dress that they did the dance routine in. So she's not let go of anything. So she's probably in charge of that, isn't she?
Yeah, she is, because if it was up, I would already not have that. Yeah. Like, I just don't care about stuff.
I understand.
Yeah.
Get me a new gun.
Yeah, that's
a new fishing pole.
I'm
a new truck.
Very happy with all of those things. Yeah. But for you especially, the style from the 90s is hot right now, man. So I'm sure that there is a lot of stuff that you probably...
I couldn't get rid of that stuff fast enough, because I look back on it. My daughters are 20 and 22, and they're over the last few years, as they've started getting old enough to understand what all this stuff is. They've looked at some of that stuff and goes, "My God, Dad, what were you wearing?" Because blame Garth for all that. All that's Garth's fault. Every bit of it's Garth's fault. It's all good, man. It's been such a pleasure getting to visit you and getting to know you.
Thank you for having me,
I look forward to our paths crossing to get out on the road. I hope we get to share the stage again many times over the years.
Yes, sir.
My bus door is always open anytime we're working together. Please never hesitate to come up and see me.
Awesome. You're the man, Tracy. Thank you for having me.
Ian Munsick.